I want to go ahead and get started because to just be respectful of everybody's time, and we want to try to be able to finish here by 9 o'clock. Again, this is a Budgeting Made Easy class through Willow Creek Community Church in South Barrington. My name is Todd Sloan. I'm a volunteer with the ministry. I've been a volunteer at Willow in this ministry for almost 10 years, but I've been involved with some sort of stewardship ministry at different churches as my wife and I have moved around to different places for over 20 years. So just this whole concept of financial stewardship and budgeting is just something that is just always been near and dear to my heart. My wife and I, we've been married 34 years now, and this is a topic, an area of our lives that just we were both synced on the same page for the most part from the very, very beginning. So, and all of the stuff that you're going to hear about in the next 2 hours, and I wish I could see a show of hands, but I really can't now. If maybe some of you have gone, had a budgeting class of some sort, or read books, or gone to seminars in the past. Maybe you've already attended this class in the past. We've been doing this class for a number of years, or something like Financial Peace University, or any number of other things. The things you're going to hear about aren't radically different than anything else. We've kind of reorganized them in a way that we think makes a little better sense and simplified things. But these things work no matter how simple they are. And in fact, they are very simple, maybe not easy in some cases, but they're simple. And my wife and I just got lucky, and we grew up in households that thought this way and lived this way. So it's just been something that we were doing even way before I ever read a budgeting book or saw a budgeting seminar of any kind. So it does work. And I hope that this class will be useful to you. And we're going to give you some tidbits that maybe you haven't heard before, or maybe give you some encouragement to try again on something that maybe you've done in the past. So before we really get rolling here, I'm going to go ahead and pray for us so that we can kind of kick this thing off in the right way here. So Father God, I just ask you to come into this meeting, into this Zoom call, and into the different rooms and houses that are involved right now, and just bless each one of us with your spirit and with your wisdom in this area. As you know, Lord, money is something that we all have to deal with, and it can be complicated, it can be scary, and it can also be fun and joyful. But we just ask you to help us all gather something here in this next couple of hours that will help us to understand it better and get our arms around, the potential issues that we have, and to avoid any pitfalls going forward. Speak through me and speak through all the volunteers that'll be helping with the discussions, and just inspire every person that's come to this class to learn something, and just inspire them and energize them with new information. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Okay, so budgeting made easy. The bad news is it might not be that easy if you haven't ever done it before. It might be kind of new. Even if you've tried it before, maybe you've gone down a path and it didn't work out, and so you got frustrated. But I'm encouraged by that. Then you're here to try again. Budgeting, I mean, the math is very, very easy. The problem is a lot of the problems that people get into with money are more surrounding their habits or their behaviors, and that can be hard to change. But once you start to understand the impact of some of these maybe actions that you're taking, then, and that's what we're going to try to do here tonight, is give you ways to do that, then it really can open your eyes, and then finally see a path through it. Of course, this past year has been quite strange. With COVID, a lot of things have been weird. Now, for some people, it hasn't really affected them financially at all. I mean, it certainly has affected everybody in their lifestyle, by not being able to do some of the things we like to do, maybe not even going into an office setting anymore, or able to do entertainment things that we like to do. Kids at home trying to do school via Zoom and all that sort of stuff. But for a lot of people, and in fact, many millions of people in the country and the world, it's affected them financially because of lost job or less less hours, less opportunity to make money. And so, it could be, and then life just happens. Even if it wasn't for COVID, and an audience this big, you would have a bunch of people that are in a very wide variety of different scenarios that just need to be dealt with. And so regardless of COVID or not, going through a budgeting class like this can be very useful. And I'm very, very excited that you're here and hopeful that you're going to come out of this with something important. But this might be the way you feel. And maybe COVID is the reason you feel this way about a lot of things in life. And maybe you're like, I've got this mess. I've got this financial situation. And maybe it's a mess, or maybe it's not a mess. Maybe it's just, hey, things seem all right, but I really don't know. How do I know if it's all right or not? I don't really know where the money is or where the money's going, but I feel like I'm okay, but how do I know? So either way, you might be like this, now what? Now, what do I do? How do I deal with this? And if you're not used to it and you haven't had the proper instruction or inspiration in the past, it could be that it's going to be a problem for you. I need to hang on a second here. I need to get something off of my screen. Well, I'll have to deal with that later. All right, so one of the things that I like to talk about is this brick. And I've actually got it here. If you see me on your screen, let's see here, get over here in front of the camera, there we go. I carry this thing around, it's 5.5 pounds. Not necessarily the most convenient thing to carry around, but it's a 5.5 pound brick. And I like to use it as an example because I think for many people when it comes to their finances, it might not be that they have a huge problem, they just might have a bunch of little problems. Or it might not be that they have like these huge bills, but they've got just a bunch of, they've got a leaky bucket. There's money going in a bunch of different directions and you just don't know where it is, but all of it's adding up to a lot. So if we were sitting in the class at Willow, you'd be sitting at a table that looks like this, the kind of the standard issue round conference table. If you've ever been to a seminar anywhere, been to a wedding banquet, whatever, grad party in somebody's backyard, you probably have sat around a table like this. And I looked this table up. I happened to find this out on Amazon, and this particular table said that it's got a capacity of 250 pounds. Which, I mean, that's like a person or two on top of it. It probably holds more than that. But if I take my 5.5 pound brick and I start piling bricks on this thing, then at some point, and I don't know what it's going to be, if it's 250 pounds and I got a 5 pound brick, what is that? That's going to be like, 25, help me with the math. Oh my goodness. Yeah, 25, no, 50 bricks would get me to 250 pounds. But maybe it's 50, maybe it's 58 bricks, maybe it's 80 bricks. At some point in time, when I start adding one more brick, it's going to be a problem. So we've all got bricks on our table here. We've got, it's your cost of housing. Your housing, the place you live has a cost. Food. You spend money on food all the time. It's just a basic need that we have. And one question I like to ask is, and it's hard here for me to see the show of hands, but I want you to think about, do you know how much money you spent on groceries last month? Now we are at April 12th. I know that very well. It's my wife's birthday today, and I'm here give you guys a class, but I did get her a Dairy Queen Blizzard before this class, so I'm good. I'm golden. That's a good thing. I'm all set. So food. A lot of people don't know how much they spent on food last month, and everybody spent money on food last month, probably. So unless you're a kid living with your parents, you probably spent money on food. So if that's true for you, if you don't know how much you spent on food last month, then right there is a clear example of something that you just don't know how much money where it's going. All right, and that probably applies to all areas of your life. But our table, okay, back to our table. How many other bricks we got on there? So we've all got transportation costs, pretty much. We got cars and insurance and all things that go along with that. You got other basic needs. There's clothing and your cell phone and household things, mowing the yard or whatever it is. Then along comes people's birthdays, and it's another load, another brick. Okay, birthdays. So a lot of people go nuts on spending for birthdays and Christmas. Christmas is a huge holiday. A lot of people go into debt just so that they can, do well with Christmas gifts. But then your car breaks down, something happens to your car, and the perfect car that never breaks will need brakes someday. They wear out, they will need tires, and you will need oil changes. So even if you have the car that never actually fails at anything, you're going to have some ongoing expenses, and those can be a surprise sometime, and that might be another brick on your table. Then if you have a place like a house or a condo or something, the hot water heater is gonna leak someday. Right over here behind this wall behind me, there's my hot water heater. I know it's about 12 or 13 years old. It's getting close. And I've already started to look. It's going to cost $700-800 to replace a hot water heater. And when I come down here someday and there's water on the floor, it's going to have to be replaced that day. All right, there's another brick. Maybe kids sports, summer's coming, maybe you got a kid likes to play baseball and sports are starting to kick back up. There's some costs there that people get. I had daughters, it was dance. And now that my youngest is out of the house, she's in college now, I don't have the thousands of dollars spent on dance lessons and shoes and things. Then, maybe you go on vacation, and then there's the dining out, and then, there's a new iPhone. The iPhone whatever just came out, and you got to have it. Well, they're not free. Okay, so that adds a brick. Starbucks, you go spend a lot of money maybe going through the Starbucks line, and that's not cheap. And if you spend $2 a day every work day of the year, you're spending about $500 on whatever that is. And Starbucks, you can't get by with $2 a day on Starbucks, hardly. So then maybe there's a medical bill. Okay, now our table's getting pretty heavy here. And somewhere along the line, one more brick is going to kill it. It's going to crush the table. I don't have a cool graphic to show that. I couldn't figure it out. I know this is pretty impressive graphics I'm showing you guys here, but the point I'm trying to make is in our finances, a lot of times it's about, we just keep adding things. We keep adding one more thing, and every one of those things might not be that much, but when you start adding up, and all of a sudden we find ourselves, we're in debt. We can't afford to pay off, the credit card bills, and we just feel like there's no money to do the things we want to do anymore. And so I'm trying to make this point that, start looking at where the money is going. Okay, so I'm showing here, I have got to get rid of this. Oops, I'm clicking through things here, aren't I? Sorry, I've got people in front of my slide here, but that's all right. I'll figure that out later. Okay, so there's this path for financial freedom that we've kind of come up with. And a lot of this stuff can be done in parallel. And in fact, it will be done in parallel at some point, but there's also some things that need to come first. And so we want to go from left to right here, and we're gonna kind of go through most of this here in this class, but we're gonna touch upon these things. But just so you know, there's many different steps. Some of them are more important than others, and some of them need to be done right away, and some of them can wait. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that a little bit. So there's just multiple things that we need to do. So the very first thing that we really need to get our arms around and our head around is that we actually don't own anything. God is the creator of the universe, and even though He's put things into our possession to enjoy and to get through life, we're really just being asked to take care of those things. And some people, for whatever reason, and I don't know why God does this, some people are handed a lot of stuff, and some people aren't. But regardless if it's a lot or a little, God's given us what He thinks we need and what we thinks we can handle, and He's very, very clear in His Word that He declares that the earth is His and everything in it, and we are His, and that's the good news is that we are His too, and so He's going to take care of us. Another important concept with where God is with money is that He talks about money in the Bible a lot. It's over, most people say there's over 2,000 references to money or wealth in the Bible. And I think that God put that all in there because He knew it was going to be a big deal. He knew it was going to be something that we were going to get tripped up on. It was going to cause us a lot of problems if we didn't take care of it right. And so there's lots and lots of advice and wisdom and guidance on how to handle money and the pitfalls of not handling it well, and the pitfalls of debt and the pitfalls of falling in love with money or the things money buys. So God is very clear. So it's important to bring God into it. And I think if you want God to bless your money, you need to bring him into it. You need to ask him about it. Pray about it. God, I know in my life, God has absolutely positively guided my wife and I on some big decisions, whether it would be to go ahead and get something, I'll give a house, for example, or not, or our level of giving or not, it's things like this. So I've felt his presence in this, so it's important that you bring him in. And he also points out that, hey, if I can trust you with a little bit, then he's probably gonna bless you with more. And also, if you're not trustworthy with worldly things, then how do you expect him to trust you with more? So I think it's just important to recognize where God is in all this and to bring him into it. Ask him if you've got issues with money, please bring him into it. So one important thing, and I touched upon a little bit here, is we need to understand where our money's going, and we also need to understand where we're going. Where are we going with this? What are your goals? What is it that you have as a financial goal? I mean, this is important anywhere, but the important thing here is, if Zig Ziglar was an inspirational speaker that he passed away a few years ago, but he was great. And one of my favorite quotes from him is, "You can't hit a target you can't see, and you can't see a target you don't have." So if you don't take the time to figure out what your goals are, and we're talking about money here primarily in this class, if you don't know what your financial goals are, like whether that goal is to be out of debt by a certain time, or to move in, be able to move into a house or a better place of living, or to get that car, or you've got or how much you want to spend on Christmas this year. If you don't have the target, then if you can't see it, then you'll never be able to hit it. So it's important that we think about where it is we want to go. Equally important is for us to understand where we are. Okay, and the example with the groceries, and I don't know how many of you would say that you knew much money you had spent on groceries. I'm guessing many of you don't. If you don't know where you are, it's very difficult then to get to wherever you're going. So my example here of this map, I've got a pin on the map, like here in the Chicago area. Okay, and I know at least one of you is not sitting in the Chicago area right now, and maybe, or two of you, and maybe more of you. So because of Zoom, you don't have to be right here. But wherever you are, if I took you from there, I blindfolded you, and I took you anywhere in the world, whether it be 2 miles away or 2,000 miles away, and took the blindfold off, if you didn't know where you were, you wouldn't be able to get back. You wouldn't know how to get back to here or wherever you are now. You would not know. And so it's important to understand where you are and where it is you want to go. Those are both very important things when it comes to your finances, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that. So where is all that money going? That's going to be a major take-home project for you here, is to begin to track your expenses. And this is something you need to start today or tomorrow. And you don't need anything fancy to do that. You don't need anything fancy at all. Anything is, just the little spiral notebooks that you can get at the dollar store for $1 or whatever they cost there, just a little with the paper in it. That is a perfectly good expense tracking tool. There are plenty of apps that you can get for your phone or on a computer. We've listed a few here. Right before the class, one of the other volunteers said there's a moneywise.org is a website that has an app that's a good budgeting app. I haven't had a chance to look at that. I'll take their word for it. But there's things like Every Dollar, You Need a Budget, Mint, Quicken. I've used Quicken since 1992. I don't even know what version of Windows was available back then. It might not even been Windows-based back then. So I could go and tell you every penny spent on anything since 1992 in my household if you give me 10, 15 minutes. But regardless of what it is, if it's a piece of paper and a pencil, the envelope system we're going to talk about a little bit later, or a spreadsheet. there's an example here, and the email you received that had a link to some files. This spreadsheet is on one of the sheets in that workbook. If you're good at Excel, you can make up your own. It's nothing particularly tricky about it. You just need to track what you're spending your money on, what's the category of that, and then how much is it, and a date. And so you can start to see how much money do I spend per week on something or per month. So whatever it is, you really, really, really need to start tracking your expenses if you aren't already. And you might be able to go back in time and see what you've done recently if you can look at credit card bills, debit card statement, checkbook, if anybody uses checkbooks anymore. There are some ways you could go back into time, but even if you can't do that easily, from this day forward, you want to start tracking where the money's going. You need to understand where it's going. So this is all working us towards being able to do a budget, and it's called Budgeting Made Easy. So the question is, what is a budget? Okay, what is a budget? Well, a budget is a set of planned spending limits. So it sets planned spending limits. So it says planned. So you're planning on what you're going to spend, and it's a limit. Now, no, most people don't like that word limit on themselves. We like our freedom. But one of the good things about a budget is it's also giving us permission to spend. So in your budget, once you work out a budget next month, you are going to have the things that you have to spend money on: food, shelter, car, insurance, blah, blah, blah. But maybe in there, you like to go to the movies, and the movie theaters are starting to open back up. Nothing wrong with that. You can do or have anything you want that takes money, anything, as long as it fits in your budget. So if you are going to say, you know what, really like to go see movies, it's been a year since I've been to the theater, we're going to put a budget of whatever, I don't know, $50 a month. Maybe you get two people into a movie, but maybe you get to share popcorn. I don't know, but whatever it is, $50 a month. Okay, so now a movie comes out, and it's like, let's go to a movie. That you've got it in your budget to spend $50, and you haven't spent it this month. You've already given yourself permission to spend that money, and that applies to everything. It could be going out to dinner, it could be your hobby, it could be buying something new, that you want. Whatever it is, you're giving yourself permission to spend, and that can be very liberating. And a lot of people will have in their budget just whatever, pocket money or cash, whatever you want to call it. And maybe, for you and your spouse, or, whatever, everybody in the house gets $25 a month okay, that means that's your $25 to spend any way you want, and once you've given yourself permission, the other person in your, like for me and my wife, if I have a $25 mad money budget, if I want to go to Cabela's and buy, fishing lures for $25, it's no big deal. I've already given myself permission to do that, and so is she, because she would have the $25 to do whatever she wants, which might be some other hobby thing that she does. Okay, so it's setting limits, but it's giving permission. You're going to find blind spots if you haven't done this real legitimately recently. You're going to find that you've got some stuff going on. You're spending money you didn't realize how much you spend on Target. You didn't realize how much you spend on Starbucks or on fishing lures or whatever it is. So you're gonna find some blind spots, which is good, because that is empowering you. You're finding out where they are. You're gonna plug some holes. It's gonna free up some money to do some other things with, or it's gonna enable you to not go to not continue adding to say a credit card debt, because you're gonna go, wow, I can't believe I spent $50 last month on Dunkin' Donuts. I don't want to do that. That seems silly to me. I'm not saying it is, but for me that would seem silly. I'm going to knock that down to $25 a month. Try that. And then you've still got your permission to spend. You're just going to cut it back, and that extra $25 can go to something else. When we do this right, it starts to bring hope. And there are probably some people on this call right now that have no hope or little hope or are losing hope in your financial situation. And I've talked to a ton of people over the years, sitting around a round table, about their situations, and we have other volunteers, and you're going to meet some of them later on this call. And there's some hopeless or seemingly hopeless situations out there, but once you start to get your arms around this, you can start to bring some hope into it, because you're just going to know better what's going on. So one of the things, just to kind of step away from the budget thing a little bit here, although this is critically important. This is a first step that we need to do. And this idea of an emergency fund, because life happens, things happen. I mentioned earlier the hot water heater leaking. When that happens, you've got to fix it. When your brakes just go out, or you hit something on the road and blow a tire on your car, you just have to fix it. Maybe this winter, when one of those super cold days, you went to start your car and it wouldn't crank because you had a bad battery, an old battery. Well, you're going to find out if you have a bad battery on one of those cold days. And if you had that, you realize you went out and you had to spend about $150 on a battery. Then, because you can't use your car until you do. So you want an emergency fund to handle those things. A good number in most cases is about $1,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not. And if you want that available to you, but not something that you can easily spend without being deliberate. What I mean by that is, a lot of people have, like say, a checking account where all of your pay comes into it, and then you're debiting out of it. You're either writing checks or things are automatically transferred out of that to pay bills. That I call like your money highway. It's like your money comes in and out, and that's just your flow. If you store your money there, then you could easily spend it. So my recommendation is take that $1,000 emergency fund, stick it over in a savings account that's not right there, so that you can get online and quickly move that to your checking account. Or you could go into the bank tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock when they open and get cash, so that you can go to Home Depot and buy the hot water heater. So if you don't have that kind of money sitting around, one of the very first things you need to think about when doing your budget is, how are you going to get there? How are you going to accumulate $1,000 set aside that's just there for when something happens? Because that stuff is going to happen. It will happen, and you've probably experienced some of those things already. If you've lived life very long at all, as an adult, you know those things happen. And so you want to build it up as quickly as you can. And then when you use some of it for that emergency, then you're going to have to turn around and top it all off, bring it back up to the $1,000. So once you get to the $1,000, now you no longer need to worry so much about it. It's sitting there ready to go, but you spend some. Now you got to go back to, okay, now how am I going to, what am I going to cut out? I'm going to cut out my whatever, the spending over here, so that I can bring that back up to where it needs to be. And so that's the emergency fund. And so you're going to want to figure out how to get there as quick as you can for that, so you're ready for those things that do happen. Okay, the 4 walls. These are 4 areas that we believe are the most important things that you have to take care of. When you're talking about my money that's coming in, it has to pay for these things first. Okay, food, as I mentioned earlier. Everybody eats. It's a basic need for everybody. If you don't know how much you spend on food, $250 a person per month in your household is a decent number to start with. You might spend less than that. You might spend more than that. It depends, how you eat, where you shop. It also depends if you have, teenage boys that eat everything in the house. Versus, maybe somebody else who doesn't eat as much. So if you don't know, and you want to just like plug something into a budget, think about $250 per person. I saw a study, Bob Chattel is one of the volunteers on here. He'd found some good information where they had done some studies. It was a couple years old. So, and this number is kind of in the middle of the ranges that they came up with. So something to think about. So there's the care center at Willow Creek, which you may be familiar with, and it's actually on site in South Barrington, and they have a food pantry there, and you can go get free food there. It used to be you could go once a month. I think in COVID, is it twice a month? Scott, yeah, twice a month. So I think you can go twice a month and get like bags of free food. And there's you go to the website, you check it out. You have to kind of register when you get there, and you get some choices that you can make, and people come out and bring food to your car. So that is a way to maybe ease that and maybe take a brick or two off your table on your food budget, at least for this period of time. Shelter is another critically important area that everybody has to deal with. And you need a safe, decent place to sleep. And that's an area that sometimes people overspend on. So you want to take a look at that. It's not necessarily easy to move right away, especially if you own or even if you rent, because you got to wait till the lease runs out. But look at how much you spend to live and what are the costs of living there. And it might be an area that's adding a lot of bricks to your table. And maybe that's something that you could look into, finding a way to reduce that cost. There's a lot of things involved with shelter. There's your utilities, insurance if you own, lawn care. You got to take care of mow the grass and do things like that. Then there's always ongoing maintenance and repairs that can happen there. And so you're going to want to, but you got to make sure that you've got that paid for. You can't miss your rent. You can't miss your mortgage. You can't let your insurance slip. You got to pay your real estate taxes, all that sort of stuff. These are things that must be taken care of as you're figuring out where's the money going this month. There's some basic needs. There's a lot of things that could fall into this. There's basic clothing requirements, and like phone is really, cell phones now are, a lot of people have just, got rid of landlines and are using their phones. Basic needs, but then look at how can you reduce the cost of those things. Basic clothing. You don't need lots of new clothing all the time. There's places to go to get like the thrift shops that you can go to get, gently used clothing for really, maybe 10, 25 cents on the dollar. And we shop at places like that, and you can get some really good stuff sometimes for very little money. And then just look at ways to cut costs, like downgrading. Maybe your home internet. I would almost put on this, kind of a required list to have internet at home. I could tell you what, I knocked $180 off my cable bill a few months ago because I got rid of TV, and I went to just an internet only plan, and I literally saved $180 per month, and that's real money. That's over $2,000 a year. That's a big deal, and it took me a half hour to do that. So that's pretty good pay for a half hour work. And we don't watch a lot of TV. We were streaming most things anyway. And if that's you might be able to save some money. Transportation costs. Another area that people tend to overspend because they got the favorite, they got that dream car when they got out of college, and even though they had, $50,000 of student loans, they still went and got the, $30,000, $40,000 car, and now you got that huge payment. That's something that you can maybe look into downgrading. Sell that thing, pay off your debt, get a much cheaper used car, and that might be something to do in this time frame, just to get by. Maybe take some of those bricks off your table. And when you're talking about in transportation costs, you got to consider how much do you drive, and there's gas, insurance, ongoing maintenance. There's license plates come due every year, and you might have other costs associated, parking costs or tolls, depending on how you travel. So these four areas, these four walls are critical to take care of. So here's our budget form. And again, if you were sitting in our class doing this live, we would have these pieces of paper in front of you, and hopefully you were able to take a look at the file. You either got the file open on a computer or you printed it out. But this is our basic one-page budget form, and that's where we get the kind of the budgeting made easy. We want to get it all on one page because you got to be able to see it. This left side is the side that we're going to work on in this first break, and what it contains. Before I do that, just a little anatomy of this form, just kind of a zoom in here. There's two columns on every item. There's a planned column and an actual column. The planned, remember I said a budget is your plan, it's a spending plan. So we're going to go into each month with a plan. We're going to decide how much we're going to spend in all these areas. And then the actual is when we're going to be like typing in, we're going to be adding in there when things occur, when we spend something, we're going to accumulate that in there. So like, for example, down here with groceries, maybe you have a $500 budget And every time you go to a grocery store or buy food one way or another, you're going to, spend $100 at Jewel. I'm going to add $100 in there in the actual. And then if you use the Excel spreadsheet up here in the top right corner, it's going to do the math for you and tell you, you'll be able to track how much money do I have left in my, before I'm at my budget limit. So that's kind of the anatomy of the form. And so I'm just going to quickly talk about what's on this side. So the income. Consider every piece of income you have, regardless. If you've got money coming in from any source, it goes in your income. And this is to be the income you take home. So it's after taxes and anything else withheld of a paycheck. If you've got any kind of assistance coming from a government agency, if you've got, maybe it's childcare or, alimony or something like that, coming from an ex-spouse, that would go in there. Anything that you have coming into your household as income should be included, so you know how much money you have to work with. The giving, I want to talk about giving just for a second here, because this was critical to my wife and I when we started giving more regularly and being deliberate about it. And this is not a pitch, by the way, to have you give money to Willow Creek. Okay, so just be advised, that's not what this is about. I'm telling you that when my wife and I understood what God has to say about money, and we started listening to that and started doing it, which goes back to about 25 years ago, that was absolutely a pivotal turning point in our finances. We weren't in bad shape at that point because we've always been pretty frugal. We've never really allowed debt to creep in on us. But our whole financial situation just got better once we started getting deliberate about giving. And in the Bible, my favorite verse says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse so that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty." And this is, a place where God is saying, hey, you human, that I created, I'm allowing you to test me in this. I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. It's for your own good. I dare you to do it, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that you just won't have enough room for it. And this scripture has proven absolutely true in my life. And so I would just say, if giving is not a deliberate part of your financial plan, I would suggest that you make it a part of your financial plan, whatever it is. And maybe that giving is helping out a family member that's that needs a handout, needs a hand up. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's your church, maybe it's some other charity, whatever it is. I think if you just get deliberate about this, and so if it's not part of your plan, I'm gonna challenge you to do it. Give it a shot for like 90 days. And if God doesn't do something with that or touch you in some way, then maybe that's not the role God, that's not your assignment from God. But I can tell you, for us, it absolutely was, and it was amazing. So I giving should be part of your plan, whatever it is. Okay, so that's part of it. Then food, groceries, and dining out. We've put dining out here. I think dining out could be more of a secondary entertainment sort of thing, but because I think that is optional in most cases, but sometimes it's not if you need to eat out at lunchtime because you're on the road or whatever. So you've got an area for food. We've got the housing area, which are all the different things that are typical for housing costs. There may be some others, so there's some blank lines there. So we're going to list those all out. If you own something, you have a mortgage payment, your real estate taxes, and maybe in some cases your insurance might be included in that mortgage payment. Don't count them twice. So if it's in your mortgage payment, then you would have zeros for real estate taxes and insurance. But if not, then you can separate them out. Just don't count them twice. We don't want show our expense higher than it really is. The basic stuff, phone, mobile, basic clothing. Maybe put your home internet in there too. Transportation costs, all the different things that go into it. Lease or a car payment would be your actually a loan payment or a lease payment. How much you spend on gas in a month or plan to. Oil changes you can plan out because that's every so many thousand miles. Depends on the vehicle and what kind of oil you use. But a lot of people, it's around 3,000 to 5,000 miles. You'd want to change your oil. You know that your plates are due on a certain date. That's $151 per car in Illinois. your insurance, you know what that is, tolls, subway, train, those sorts of things. There may be other things that you could relate to transportation costs. So, all right, so I kind of blew through that very, very fast, and I apologize for that, but that's going to be something you're going to want to sit down and spend some time on, because you need to kind of go find out where things are. But we're going to break out into our little small groups right now. And you know, you can start filling out that form if you got it in front of you, and then you're going to have a table leader, which they're all in here. These are all volunteers, and you'll get a chance to be introduced to yours shortly. But we're going to take a break here for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and move on to the next section. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. To everybody, welcome back from the break. I'm sure that seemed really, really short. I stuck my nose in a couple of the breakout sessions, and there was some good conversations going on, so that's all good. One of the interesting ones that I heard was about thrift store shopping, and I mentioned that earlier. And yeah, there's a lot of great ways to save money through thrift stores. Another one that I heard was somebody talking about how you know, there's a lot of different things that you buy at a grocery store that aren't food. You know, you have your toiletries and household items, and you know, especially if you go to someplace like you know, a Target or Walmart, where you can get milk, eggs, motor oil, shoes, you know, and bicycle tires, and that might be on one receipt. So how do you deal with that? Well, you're going to have to do a little work. You know, I mean, we would like to know the detail of how much you spend on food, you know, and how you try to separate that stuff out. So it might be a little bit of homework that you have to do to actually look at the receipt and kind of break things out a little bit. You know, household items like, you know, your laundry soap and dish soap and toilet paper and all that, you know, aren't food. So we're going to show here in a minute, a little bit later, the secondary kind of expenses, and we're going to lump it in there. Our form is very not detailed on purpose. Okay, so we don't have a laundry soap column and a toilet paper column and a motor. You know, we have, you know, motor oil and transportation or those sorts of things, because some of the budgeting forms that I've seen are overwhelming, and we're trying to get you to look at this and start somewhere. And you start with these big things, and you start getting deeper and deeper into the details. And then eventually it'll become a lot easier, and you'll really know where some of the stuff is going. So those are just some of the things that I heard in the conversations that are valid things that come up all the time. And yes, those are you know, some of the challenges with how to parse all this out. So so our next section here is going to be pretty quick, but it's probably, in my opinion, the most important one, and it has to do with taming debt. Now, debt has become very, very normal in our society. A lot of people carry debt. A lot of people carry all kinds of debt. There's credit card debt. There's, you know, your normal, you say, mortgage and car payment kind of debt. Student loan debt is a major problem for a lot of people these days, and people just you know, tend to you know, some of that is, you know, behavioral. You want it now. You don't want to save up for something, or you know, sometimes you get into that because of something bad that happens, such as an unexpected car problem, which again, that emergency fund might help you there. Medical bills, you know, that's one that's like, yeah, somebody gets sick, somebody has an accident, and then all of a sudden you have bills that you couldn't have anticipated, and they can be large sometimes. So debt is, you know, sometimes isn't all because of bad behavior, but either way, once we have that debt, we have to try to get it under control. Now, oops, that didn't work. Hold on, my screen just locked. Okay, there we go. In the form set that you have with the, again, if you were in our classroom, we would have paper in front of you. But it's on that Excel workbook that was, the link was sent out to you. There's something called a debt snowball list. There's nothing, and this is a very simple form. Basically, the concept of the debt snowball is this, is that you need to list all of your debt items in order from the lowest amount owed to the highest amount owed. And in this case, we're really not yet counting, say, a mortgage, okay, but we're counting everything else. So college, student loan debt would be on here, all your credit cards, medical bills. If you have a home equity line of credit that you've used, that would be here too, because it's not your actual mortgage. It's really more of a consumer debt. But debt is a big deal. And debt is something that is also mentioned a lot in the Bible. And a good verse in the Bible is that the borrower is slave to the lender. So once you borrow money and you can't pay it off right away, you become indebted and you become a slave to the lender. And so you've given up some freedom. And one of the things that bothers me the most about debt, excuse me, is money you haven't even earned yet is already gone. Okay, so if you've got a 5-year loan on a car, for the next 5 years, money you will have to work for is already gone. And I just don't like it. My wife and I really have not ever been in deep trouble on debt, but we've carried some debt here and there, of course, the mortgages and things like that. But being debt free frees up a lot of resources in most cases. So think about if you have an idea in your head right now, how much money you spend on all of your debt. And if you don't know that, you're going to after you fill out this form. Think about if you had all of that money available to you each month, whether that's you have $500 that you pay, or $1,000 or $5,000 a month, whatever you pay on all your debts each month. If you had that available, that would represent like the biggest pay raise most people have ever gotten if they could just get rid of all of their loan payments and their credit card payments. So, oops, didn't mean to do that, sorry. So this form, we're going to list from lowest amount owed to highest. And the reason for that is it's like a debt killing to-do list. And what we want to do is put it in lowest amount owed at the top so that we can attack that one first and start to get some results. So what I want to explain it here in a second, but what we're going to do is we want to see results. It's kind of like a to-do list. I like to make to-do lists. And the reason I like to make to-do lists, and the reason a lot of people make to-do lists, is it helps you organize your time and what you got to do, but it also shows accomplishment. As you take care of things, you get to mark them off and it feels good. We get a natural sense of accomplishment and endorphins are released in our brain and it feels good. So by making a list of all your debts, you're gonna be able to see our progress on that. And it's also very important to get this on one piece of paper because a lot of people just don't know what that number is. Just like groceries, they don't really know how much they spend on their debt each month. So we want to be able to do that. So we're going to list them all out here, and we're going to, this form shows, the total amount to pay it off, then the minimum payment that's required on that, and then what your current payment is. And I'm going to explain what that current payment thing is here in a second. So we've got an example here of a person who has 4 debt items. Okay, there's looks like there's 3 credit cards here. There's Kohl's, there's Visa and MasterCard, and then there's a car loan. Okay, and you can see what the total payoff is. They're ordered in lowest to smallest, and we're showing here the minimum payment. Sometimes your minimum payment on credit cards is often pretty small relative to what you owe, because the credit card companies would love it if you actually never really paid them off. If you just paid the minimum forever and ever, because they would maximize how much interest they get from you, they would be happy about that. So what we're going to do is, though, you're going to identify what that minimum payment is, and then those minimum payments which in this case is our current payment, are going to go into your budget form. So we have our car payment that which was part of the transportation that we just went through. And then there's a debt section on the right-hand side of that form, and we're going to enter, these are our planned amounts, okay, that we're going to stick into our budget form. So here's just kind of a different way to look at it. So we've got these all listed up here, and you can see our little guy at the top of this mountain, our little tiny snowball up there. We're going to get rolling down this hill. So we're going to make our minimum payments each month, but we're going to also see if we can't come up with some extra money to throw at this. And that might be have a garage sale now that the weather's getting better. Maybe sell something online. Maybe it's pick up extra hours at work. Maybe it is cutting out some other expense for the time being so that you can apply it to your debt. So if you can come up with extra funds to throw at the top one on the list, we want to do that. So after a little bit of time, we're going to pay off that credit card, but that $100 that was being used for the Kohl's card, we're going to now just roll that over and start applying that to the Visa, which is the second one on our list. So now we've got $200 going in instead of $100. So again, we're going to try to find some more money to throw at our debt. And after a little more time, we're going to pay that one off. And now the $200 that was going towards the Visa card, we are going to roll that over and start applying that to the MasterCard. So you can see our speed of paying off our debt on the one at the top of the list is increasing, just as a snowball running down a mountain is going to get bigger and pick up speed. So again, we're going to see if we can throw more money at this somehow to get it paid off faster. And then after just a few more months, the $400 that we're going to the MasterCard, we will now apply to the car payment. So all $700 are going towards a car payment instead of the $300 normal car payment. And you can do that. They'll let you pay it off early, and it saves you on interest, and it reduces the amount of time you're paying for it. Still, keep throwing more money at it until it's all paid off. And in just a few more months, you're going to have your debt paid off. Now, that seems very simplistic. But the reality of it is, if you get serious about this debt and you put it on a list and you see the progress, you start to get energized. If you start out with 10 things on your list and all of a sudden in the first month, you knock 2 or 3 of them off because they're kind of small, and you get real deliberate and you go, wow, this really works. And then you get more and more excited and you see it go. And then before you know it, you will have everything paid off. And all of that money, in this case, in our example, $700 a month, they were paying towards that. Their debt is now available to do something else, and maybe it's available to start saving money for retirement, to do something fun, or whatever it is, or save up for that house or something like that. So graphically, it looks like this. This is the way our debt came down in this little bar chart. I'm an engineer at heart, and I like graphs and numbers. But this graph is fine. It shows the different debt items going away over time. But this is the snowball effect that is the key and why this is a great thing. So here at the 16th month, we go to 0 owed because we've paid everything off in that first 15 months of making those payments. Now, if we didn't do the snowball part, if we didn't roll over those payments each time we paid the top one on the list off, if we didn't take that money and apply it to the next one, and we just took that, when we paid off that first credit card to Kohl's, that $100, say, oh, we don't have that debt anymore. I've got an extra $100 to, play with now. If you did it that way, that same example, it would have taken us almost another whole year to pay off the same debt. So instead of paying that debt off in 15 months, it would have taken 27 months to pay it off. Okay, so that is a big deal. And so to get there faster frees up that money faster, but you get that sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. And when you see this work, then you won't want to go into debt anymore. It really is a great feeling to be debt-free. And this is a way to do it. So that was a very fast explanation, I understand. But what I want you to do is hopefully, if you don't have that form in front of you, take a piece of paper and just start writing down all of your debt items and take a guess at how much you owe. You probably have a pretty good idea of how much you have left to pay off. Just start writing it down, because it's important to put that on one piece of paper. And that might be an uneasy feeling, because maybe you've never done that. It might be uncomfortable. And I actually want it to be uncomfortable for you, because it is so important for you to hate debt, because it is such a boat anchor on your finances. And the sooner you can get out of debt, the better off you'll be. And as soon as you get out of debt, then you're more likely to stay out of debt. It's hard to get out of debt, okay, when you're in it. And so once you get there, a lot of times you go, oh, man, I don't want to go through that again. So that's going to be the topic of our next break. We're taking about another 10 or 15 minutes here, and then start dreaming about what it is to be debt free. So we'll be back in a little bit, and you're going into here now. So great. We're getting into the final stretch here. One thing that I wanted to mention here about the debt snowball, I'd love to be able to find out some of the comments, and that's one of the beauties of being in class. In the class, I can walk around and I can hear some of the comments or see what people are writing down. But a lot of times people are blown away when they write down all their debt. And like I said, I kind of want that feeling for you. I'm not, not in a bad way. That's a good feeling to see it and then to attack it. When you get your debt snowball done, when you get home, and this is one of your homework projects that you really need to do right away, is to get this thing listed out, is take that list and put it somewhere visible in your house. And that might be the refrigerator. Maybe it's on your mirror in your bathroom so that when you're getting ready in the morning, you see it. Or I think one of the best ways is that whatever door you exit your house through when you leave for the day. Of course, now I guess people are still kind of staying in, but put it in a very visible way. But when you leave every day and you see that, that just kind of puts that into your head. Like, here's my debt. Here's what I'm focused on right now. Here's the item we're going to knock out next. And then here's the progress we've made. Here's the 3 or 4 items we've already marked off the list. And it is just a super cool feeling. And if you've never had that feeling, I want you to have it, because it is just the coolest feeling to see that debt going down. So, okay, so there's another whole side to this budget form. This is going to be probably the hardest stuff to fill out, because it's the weirdest stuff. It's the stuff that's buried in other, a lot of it's buried in other bills, like that Target and Walmart receipts, in terms of things like personal care and entertainment. What, that's kind of buried in your credit card someplace. What is entertainment? What are you going to count as entertainment? I might count dining out as entertainment. Maybe that stays in the food section, and you don't count that as entertainment. That's fine. Or going to the movies, or if you have an entertaining hobby, like for me it would be fishing or riding a bike. If you had a budget for that. But there's a lot of things here that you need to kind of go through and figure out, what are you spending, and is there a way to reduce costs? I mentioned a little bit about the cable bill earlier, and if you can live without watching TV, and frankly, you can go buy about a $25 antenna and plug it into most of the, if you've got a newish, maybe even last decade kind of age TV, you can pick up local TV channels in the air for free. And you can really cut out cable if that works for you, and then maybe just stream things. Look at your streaming services. Some people have a whole bunch of them. Do you really need them all? Maybe you boil it down to just one. You can go get free movies at the library. And the libraries are open back up again. So you can go get free movies at the library. You can go to a red box at a grocery store or different places. And the movies there are like $1 or $2. So there's a lot of ways to get home entertainment for free to low cost. Gift giving, there's a gifts form in there. A lot of people get out of control on gifts. And gifts is something that is completely optional. Or it could be honed down. And some people have a cultural pressure, or tradition about gifts. And a lot of people go into debt so that they can give gifts. Sometimes gift giving is a competition between you and somebody else in the family to be the coolest aunt or whatever. So think about that. Memberships, gym memberships. Are there memberships to places that you don't use? And that is, there's hundreds of millions of people or tens of millions of people in this country right now that have gym memberships, probably, that they don't use it and haven't used it for a year. Of course, it's been hard to use it in the COVID environment, but personal care items, entertainment, we talked about, pocket money. I mentioned that earlier. It's important to have some fun too, but plan for what it is you're going to allow yourself, give your permission to yourself to spend. As we go on down the sheet, their insurances, there might be ways to save on health and dental and life insurance. Look into that. It's possible. Car insurance, which is, part of the transportation cost, but that's one where sometimes, a lot of times, if you shop it, you can find a lower cost and get it with the same coverage. So something to look into. Other things you need to plan on that are a little bit longer term is, other giving, overall giving, versus, church giving, tithing, kind of a churchy kind of sounding thing versus other charities that you want to give to. We talked about the emergency fund, the short-term emergency fund. You really kind of need a longer-term emergency fund. So if you get laid off, if like something like COVID happened and, all of a sudden you just aren't working all of a sudden, how do you get through the next few months until you find another job or until the situation changes? Retirement is something that it's a long-term deal. The sooner you start, and I can't see the audience here, but a lot of times we have people from, young 20s to 60s or older in the class. Well, certainly the younger you are when you start thinking about retirement, the better off, but it's never too late to start. College fund. My college plan with my girls was when they started breathing, I started saving. Was able to put both girls through, well, one's in college currently, but all the money she's going to need for college is there already. And so it's a way, think about these things long-term and put those in your budget. Car replacement. Your car's going to need to be replaced someday. You might want to start tucking money away for that. Car repairs come up, or you're going to need new tires. Home repair, your roof might need to be replaced someday, or a paint, it needs to be repainted, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of other things that you need to think about. Again, those 4 walls is the key things to make sure you got them covered. And then you come into this section of the form and you start working on all these other things. It's so, like I said earlier, budgeting is not easy. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work to get this right. And it's going to take you about 3 months at least of going through this before you're going to feel like you've got it figured out. So don't lose faith. We're on April 12th. You've got maybe a little less than 3 weeks before we get into May. You know what? Your May budget probably isn't going to work right. You're going to miss something. You're not going to really know for sure where all this money's going. And you're going to learn. You're going to find some blind spots, and then the next month it'll get a little bit better, and the next month a little bit better, and it'll get easier, and you become more knowledgeable of this stuff. So it's going to take some iteration to get through it all. So I encourage you to please do that. The envelope system. Usually, if I ask for a show of hands, there's a lot of people or some people who have used an envelope system in some form. It's kind of the same as grandma's cookie jar, from the old days of stuffing money away for a specific purpose. And then pulling the money out of that for when that purpose arises. So the envelope system is something that I want you to consider starting to use right away. And this is a way to start doing budgeting kind of activity before you ever have your written budget. So the way this works is you're going to pick some items, and I want you to try to tonight, pick 2 or 3 items in your spending world that you think maybe, you like to give it a shot on this, or maybe you think it's maybe a little bit out of control, or you spend money on stuff, but you want to really control it better. In our example here, maybe there's groceries or that dining out and entertainment, kind of lump them together in this example. You could do whatever, anything in your budget you can do this on. So the idea of this, you're going to take an envelope, you're going to write whatever that category is on that envelope, and then you're going to decide how much money do you want to allow yourself to spend in that area, and you're going to put that cash in that envelope. Okay, so when that item, when you go do that thing, whatever it is, when you go to the movies, and if you've got an entertainment envelope, or if you go to out for dinner and you've got your dining out envelope, you're going to take money out of that envelope and use it to pay for that. You can't borrow from other envelopes. You've got multiple envelopes going. You can't rob from one to make it work for another. Once you run out of money in your envelope, you're done. Okay, you have to be done with that. And if it's the middle of the month and somebody asks you to go out to dinner and you don't have any money left in your dining out envelope, or there's clearly not enough, you've only got $5 in there and they want to go to, you know, a nice restaurant or whatever, you're going to have to just say no. And that discipline is really important. You can use the envelope to track your expenses. So you can either just write it on the envelope if it's a paper envelope. You can stuff your receipts in the envelope. That's pretty cool. You can do it that way too. And so it now all of a sudden you have your tracking and your budgeting, and you can see how much money is left. And so I want you to think about 2 or 3 areas that you can start doing this, and try to start doing this like right away, this week, next week. Just get going on this. This will get you into this mentality of a limit on spending and a plan on spending and a tracking on at least a few items that's in your world. And then, like I said, once the cash runs out, you're done. You're done. So here's an example. So this particular one, we're going to combine personal care and dining out and entertainment into one envelope. You can see the amounts there, $50 and $40, and we're going to put the money into the envelope. Then, you know, as things come along, we're going to spend money. We're going to go out for some Starbucks one day, and then somebody says, hey, let's go grab a pizza. So you take some money out of there. And then, you know, then all of a sudden you say, hey, let's go to a movie. And then you look in your envelope and there's $5 in there. All right. Well, you're not going to get to go to the movie because you don't have enough left in the envelope to do that. But maybe there's something else. Maybe you already have a Netflix or some streaming service. Even a pay-per-view movie through Comcast or whatever is a lot less expensive than going to the theater. And there's some pretty new movies out there. You might spend only $5 to watch a movie that you missed in the theaters when it was in the theaters 6 months ago. And again, you have Redbox that's cheap, and the library that's free for entertainment. So that's kind of a quick view of how the envelope system works. I'd like you to give it a shot. So this is just our path to financial freedom. We didn't go deep into all these areas, but the thing is, it starts with God. It starts with tracking your expenses and understanding where it's going currently. It's setting some goals of being debt free, of maybe something you want to buy or something you want to save for, or some long-term thing. The emergency fund is very important to get that under control, or get that in place. Determine that you're going to live debt-free. Okay, you're going to stop adding to debt. You're going to kill the debt you have, and then you're going to do everything in your power to not go into debt again. And then, long-term savings for later in life and retirement and college funds and things like that is something that you're going to want to work on too. Right now, though, you're in this class. I think it's important that kind of draw a line down the middle of this slide, the left side, the emergency fund to the left. That is really important that you start understanding all that stuff, but then begin that living debt-free and that debt snowball now too. So, Another Bible verse to refer to that's very key in all of this is, this one's great. I love it. It says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. That word diligent, that to me, that means grit. That means work. That means trying. That means investing some of yourself, some of your time, sitting at the kitchen table with receipts out, with a spreadsheet out, with your tracking mechanism out, and looking at where is the money going. And if you are diligent about that, you're going to be able to get your arms around it. And if you don't do that, if you're just hasty about this and you kind of blow it off and it's not for you and it's too hard, and that surely leads to poverty. So, all right, so we're going to just wrap some things up here. I'm going to give you a little pieces of information here. Then we're going to go back into our groups, and it's 8:45 now, so we'll have a little bit of time for our group discussions after this. So probably one of the most important things that we want you to consider is one-on-one coaching. And your table, your discussion leader, at least some of the discussion leaders we have here tonight, that's one of the things that they normally do. They like to do one-on-one coaching. If one-on-one coaching is where you're going to get into a conversation, a dialogue, and when it's safe, or whenever you feel safe doing it, you can meet face to face, but we can certainly meet via Zoom. you're gonna go one-on-one with somebody, and they're gonna help you just kind of weed through your stuff or your mess or your finances, whatever it is. They'll be able to answer your questions. They'll be able to look at your situation and maybe give you some advice. A lot of them have coached people for years and years and years and have seen a lot of different scenarios and should be able to help you out. I highly encourage you to, you're going to get an email after this class to encourage you to do this. That email you see there, stewardship@willowcreek.org. If you send an email to that and just say, hey, I'm interested in one-on-one coaching, leave your name, maybe a phone number or your email address, and somebody will get back to you to set that up. Our care center has lots of services. I mentioned food earlier. WillowCreekCareCenter.org is their website. You can go out there and see what else is available. They have all kinds of different services. Some of them, it doesn't matter who you are or how much money you make, it's available to you. On some of the services, there are income limits to take advantage of, but please check them out. They have a lot of great resources or can point you to resources. There's the Willow Response Pastors that's available. This phone number here, that's just a general purpose. We'd like to put it on here. That's kind of like if you've got any sort of issue where you think you need pastoral help, advice, just somebody to come alongside you, that's a good phone number to call. Some other upcoming classes coming out of the stewardship ministry that are currently planned. We have an estate planning class that will be on May 10th. And that's going to be via Zoom. And then we're going to be doing some more budgeting made easy classes. This class here, you might by June or September, you might go, I kind of like to sit through that again. I need to hear that again. Absolutely feel free. But we're planning those to be in person at the South Barrington campus building, assuming COVID stays under control or continues to get better. There's a college planning 101 class that's coming up on September 20th. Excellent class. If you have college-bound kids, and I would say, or if you are planning on having college-bound kids, this would be a good class for you. It's not just about how to pay for college, it's about how to think about college and how to prepare yourself and your child for college. Excellent class. One of our volunteers, Lewis, that's on this call here, teaches that class. It's really, really good. It's out there in the fall ways. It's a ways out, but something to think about. And then we have a Social Security class. We haven't nailed down the date, haven't confirmed this one, but we're certainly targeting that for the fall as well. And that would be for people that are kind of approaching Social Security age. It's useful to understand all the ins and outs of Social Security. So that is it for the class. That's it for me. That's the last you're going to hear from me. I'm sure you're happy about that. I show us at 10 minutes to 9. We're going to be able to go maybe for about 20-25 minutes here. We're going to need to shut things down maybe around 9:15. But you're going to go back into your groups now. And this is just kind of a mop-up session. You could talk about whatever. If you've got that budget form out and you're looking at some of those items we just went through, you can certainly talk about that. I would say share some ideas with each other on how you've saved money in the past. I find that a lot of people have found some very clever ways to save money and to stretch their dollars, and that might be a good thing to talk amongst yourselves. And then, what steps can you take? Think about this. You could talk about it in a group, but walk out of this going, what can you do starting tomorrow to start moving towards this financial control and empowerment? And we're going to break into the groups. But before we do, I just want to say thank you so much for attending this class. I'm passionate about it. All the volunteers that are on here are passionate about this. We know there's a big need. We know that money can be a problem. We know that people can get into a rut and then feel like there's no hope and there's no way out. But there is. But it's going to take some work and some diligence. But I guarantee you, if you start applying some of these things, you're going to be better off. It may not happen overnight. You may a year from now, 2 years from now, you may still have, a big problems, big debt or whatever. But you'll be better off if you start doing this. And you might be surprised. You start tackling this stuff, and some of this stuff will start happening pretty quick, especially when you see results, and then you get excited, and then nothing will get in your way. So I'm just going to send you off to your small groups now, and thank you so much, and encourage you to do one-on-one coaching and just make this all work for you. I'll be praying for you guys. Thank you.